This week on Diabetes Connections, the Diabetes Research Institute is focused on curing and preventing diabetes. We're checking in to see what's on their radar in 2025. Safer islet cell transplant options without drugs, smarter devices to protect islets, and what they call quantum leap projects. I'm talking with their scientific director and the CEO of their foundation to catch up and take a look forward. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to another week of Diabetes Connections. I'm your host, Stacey Sims. Always so glad to have you here. We aim to educate and inspire about diabetes with a focus on people who use insulin. Super excited to announce that both of our fall Mom's Night Out events are open for registration. We will be in Minneapolis in September, Phoenix in October. There is an early bird special right now for both of those events. So please tell the moms that you know, tell women with type 1 in those areas. We are having so much fun at these events. They are getting bigger and better every single time. I am also looking ahead to how I'm going to celebrate 10 years with this podcast. You'll be hearing more about that in the weeks to come, but I'd love your input. Yeah, we started the show in 2015. I didn't expect it to be a 10-year project. I didn't know what to expect when I started it. I just knew that I wanted a podcast that was more news-based, that wasn't personal stories only. Those are great, but I wanted to be able to do interviews where somebody was asking follow-up questions and approaching this in a more journalistic way, which is what I've done for the last 10 years. I don't give advice. I'm not out here telling you how to dose or what to eat or how to bolus, but I cannot believe the incredible guests that have come on this show, shared their stories, shared their advice. I love doing this. I thought about wrapping it up after 10 years, but I'll be honest with you, we're going to continue. Maybe I should have waited, but no surprise announcement there. Okay, my guests this week are from the Diabetes Research Institute, the DRI, and they say they are aggressively working to develop a biological cure for diabetes by restoring natural insulin production, normalizing blood sugar levels without imposing other risks. Sounds incredible, but whenever we talk about DRI, I always hear from people who say, I've been in the diabetes community for a long time, or, my kid was diagnosed years ago. Why have I never heard of the DRI? And we do talk about that in this interview. I think that is a very fair question. But whether you've heard of them or not, they are doing really good work. And that is what we're going to be talking about today. My guests are Dr. Matthias von Harath. He is the scientific director of DRI. And Michael Burton. He's the CEO of the Diabetes Research Foundation. Two very different angles, but here in the same interview, they complemented each other really well. And my conversation with and about the Diabetes Research Institute right after this. I love when I don't have to deal with a faraway mail order system, when I can just pick up diabetes supplies from the pharmacy. Omnipod is the only tubeless full-feature insulin pump available through the pharmacy. It makes it simple to pick up pods and insulin in the same place, and you avoid those high startup costs from traditional tubed insulin pumps. You simply pay as you pod. Remember, pharmacy means no commitment, and pharmacy means you can switch now, even if your tubed pump is under warranty. Learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Omnipod logo. For full safety risk information and free trial terms and conditions, visit omnipod.com/diabetesconnections. Michael Burton, Dr. Matthias von Harath, welcome to Diabetes Connections. I'm so glad to have you here. Really looking forward to our conversations. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Likewise, very happy to be here.
Michael, let me start with you if I could. We've talked to folks from DRI before, but can you just give us a reminder, sort of an overview of what the mission is there? What do y'all do?
Absolutely. So the Diabetes Research Institute, located in Miami, is one of the most important research organizations focused on curing and preventing diabetes. We've been in existence for over 50 years, and we have our fingerprints, so to speak, on some of the most important discoveries in the world of diabetes research and care in those 50 plus years. It's an extraordinary place that is contributing mightily to our understanding of this disease and how we treat it. We are cure focused. We are focused like a laser on ending this disease as we know it. And while our history is, very, very bright and very productive, I have no doubt that our future is going to be even more productive. We are an organization on the move, and we will end this disease one of these days. That is for sure. I have no doubt that one of these days that the history of the cure will be written, and when that history is written, that the Diabetes Research Institute will figure prominently on those pages. Now, I am the chief executive of the Diabetes Research Institute Foundation. We are a separate organization focused on nothing other than raising the money that the Institute needs to pursue its work, and also raising the profile of the Institute among the donor public and the public at large. And that's what the Institute and the foundation are focused on.
Excellent. So we've got a lot to talk about in terms of the public-facing stuff, because I do think that's really important, because if you're doing all this stuff and people don't know about it, right, you want to keep people posted as you go. But let's talk about some of the research. And Matthias, let me move to you. We actually had one of these stories in the news episodes not too long ago. I can't pronounce any of this. I'm just going to give it to you, if you don't mind, to talk about what's going on in terms of stem cells and what you all have been able to do recently.
So I can tell you, Stacy, about a bit longer than 2 years ago, I came to the DRI, and DRI is really the best translational academic research place I've ever seen because of its interdisciplinarity. And that means breaking down barriers between different areas of research and translation of the research to the patients. And specifically to your question about stem cells, that's where things are now really exciting. The idea is that you can grow new beta cells, islets, whole islets, not only beta cells, from stem cells. And with that, you have an unlimited source of these islets. And these islets then can, in principle, replace the internal islets that patient lost when they developed type 1 diabetes. So it's really an approach from the stem cells that it's really going towards a cure, because you replace something that has been completely lost. Where it becomes really exciting, there's a first proof of concept of the company Vertex that also worked with the University of Miami and the DRI, having a first line of stem cell derived such islets working functionally in patients. So you can say, well, what gives this? Sounds fantastic. What are the remaining barriers? Why can't everybody have the islets? And that's why we're here. That's why research is so important. What are the barriers that we need to overcome? We need to overcome that these islets that are now available in a more unlimited fashion, but do not become again attacked by the immune system or in general. Because if you put foreign things in the human body, it has the preponderance, unfortunately, to reject these things. And the way this was done in the past, you completely suppress the immune system, but you can, of course, guess that that's not a good choice from a patient perspective. Right. On the one hand side, okay, no islets, very good. But on the other hand side, your immune system gets won over, so to speak, by being suppressed. Not so good. So this equipoise that we should suppress the immune system as little as possible while bringing the islets to the patients, that's the clear final frontier that needs to be solved. And you can ask more questions about it. I don't want to pontificate.
No, I appreciate it.
But
to clarify, are you working with Vertex on what they're doing, or is the research that I'm looking at here from DRI separate?
No, you're looking at DRI research, but for clinically, for the clinical trials, we work together. So the clinical trials are very set things where the protocol is established is not research, it's really to test. In that case, it was about to test whether the islets that Vertex has generated work. And it happened at many sites, not only at the DRI. Okay.
Got it.
The research that the DRI is doing, that's very important, centers around the theme we just touched upon, to take the immune system back from attacking new islets. And we have to do it in a way that's selective so that you don't suppress the overall immune system. And that's a big axis of our work. We call it better tolerable immune therapies. There have been some really exciting advances recently in that area. And that has to be coupled. That's why this, what we refer to as interdisciplinarity, is so important. It ideally has to be coupled, which is a second pillar of research at the DRI, with regenerating islets efficiently once they're in the patient. Because that means that you don't, when you destroy some of them, you don't run out of the islets, so to speak. And then the third pillar is to actually build devices that can help you to hold the islets, maybe in some cases capsulate them off the immune system, or at least have sort of a gas tank of local immune modulation or suppression within the device where the islets sit, so that this immune suppression that is now locally and not systemically delivered, just locally, that this can protect the islets. So you have these three pillars: better immune therapies, regeneration of adult beta cells or stem cell derived beta cells, and smarter devices that can protect islets when they go back into patients.
Michael, let me ask you a question about this. I know we're talking about the science over here, but you have to talk to, Matthias, forgive me, you have to talk to regular people about this.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been talking about stem cells for a very long time and this kind of research. And, it's very hopeful. We see the trials moving forward. We see one or two people getting this kind of pretty incredible development happening to them and doing well with it. How do you tell people about this? I don't know how to say this, but I guess I'm asking, some people are getting a little cynical about it. It's taken a long time. How do you speak about it?
It's a great question. I've been on board for about a year and a half now in this role. So, like Matthias, I'm relatively new, and I have to tell you, and just to be clear, I came out of the oncology field. For 15 years, I was working for organizations focused on cancer research and care. When I joined the DRIF and started to travel around the country and meet with our friends and donors, I heard that, Stacy. I heard that cynicism. I heard the concern about the pacing, and we were told 5 years, 10 years. When my child was diagnosed 20 years ago, we were told 5 years, and then another 5 years, and then I'm sure this sounds familiar to you, and it's frustrating to hear that, and I'm sure it's frustrating for the people who feel that way. I understand why they feel that way. One of the things, though, that I say to them when I do hear that is that having this disease now versus having this disease 20 years ago, it's a whole different world. Now, have we cured it? No, we haven't. But have we made life easier for people who are navigating this disease through better insulins, through CGMs, through pumps, things that, didn't exist 40, 50 years ago? Clearly, the answer is yes. So while we haven't cured diabetes per se, we have discovered and have achieved successes, right? Victories, so to speak, on the road to that cure. So people are right to be, I think, a little skeptical. But the fact of the matter is that I believe we are poised for extraordinary discovery in this field and the translation of that discovery into new therapies. And one day, the cure. As I said, I came from the oncology field. This time and place right now for diabetes research and care reminds me a lot of where the oncology field was 20 years ago, before the advent of immunotherapies, and how immunotherapies, CAR T therapies, checkpoint inhibitor therapies, how those therapies have really transformed the treatment of cancer. I believe that the field of diabetes is exactly where the oncology field was 15, 20 years ago. And I think the next 15, 20 years is going to see extraordinary progress.
I very much like what you just sketched out, of course, Michael, a narrative that we need a very honest scientific communication, in particular to our main stakeholders, the patients, but to the general public. And the reality is indeed that the way science progresses, how it has progressed in all fields where advances were made, there's lots of victories. Might want to not even call them little victories, just victories that you can celebrate. And they then add up to big steps. So every year at the DRI, that's our philosophy, we celebrate all the research victories because in reality, that's how things progress. And it is in reality actually not such. In the worst case, there was these terms from maybe more Silicon Valley that people said you fake it till you make it. But you know what they assume, that there's a binary event at the end. There's nothing and all of a sudden it's great. That's not how research progresses. Patients, everybody needs to understand we have victories every year, some of them small, some of them bigger. These things all add up tremendously, and that's how it goes. It's like with the violin. I play violin. It's not like one day all of a sudden it comes to me that I can play Brahms' violin concerto. Actually, probably never. But at some point, but you still practice every day, and you live on your little victories. They make you extremely happy. That's how that goes, and it
That's
makes them
great.
significant. Does that make sense? I mean, it's very important because there have been disappointments, but their disappointments were based on this binary assumption that a long time nothing happens and then all of a sudden it's a cure. Actually, many things are happening all the time. That's what makes science so exciting, right?
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. I love that analogy. One of the things I read, I'm going to need you to really explain this for me, and I'm a little squeamish, so I'm entering this delicately. This is about a unique approach, transplanting insulin-producing cells into the eye. What? Tell me about why this. Tell me about this. Right back to our conversation. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Dexcom. Benny has been using the Dexcom CGM for more than 10 years now. The first insertion was in 2013, just before he turned 9. It was great then. I mean, if you had done finger sticks for a while, you know how amazing it is to go from that to continuous glucose monitoring. But it's even better now. The Dexcom CGM systems just keep improving. They continue to get more and more accurate with no finger sticks or scanning required. The easy push-button insertion has made it easy for Benny to do it himself. He has done every one since we switched to the G6 in 2018, which was great for his independence back then as a younger teen. And of course, we still love the alerts and alarms and that we can set them how we want. Find out more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. If your glucose alerts and readings from the G6 do not match symptoms or expectations, use a blood glucose meter to make diabetes treatment decisions.
Yeah, that's something that I found also extremely intriguing, I have to say, and it was developed by two researchers at the DRI, Pierolo Becker and Midat Abdul-Reda, for over many years. This idea. The idea was initially, this evolved. The initial idea was that the islets will stay in the eye, and are actually left there entirely peaceful. And then nothing will happen to them. But we learned over time, actually, that the islets can actually survive in the eye, but the immune system is still interested in them. So this intraocular transplantation, as it's called, has then gained interest for two reasons: not only as a transplant site where you can see what actually happens to the transplanted organ, your islets, but also where you can use it as a direct feedback what might be wrong with them, which is usually very difficult. If you put the islets in the liver or in the omentum or under the skin even, you don't see directly what happens to them. In the eye, you can see what happens to them. To make the long story short, the DRI is extremely interested in trying right now and making a major effort to see that we can enroll patients, because it's preclinically vetted, for a trial where we put islets in the eye to see whether that in principle can work in both ways. One, to replace, of course, insulin, or at least to see what happens to islets when they are transplanted in a human body. That would accelerate the field, even if only the latter is true. It would accelerate the field tremendously. And it makes you a little bit squeamish, but actually there's many things that can happen in the eye that are done routinely. I have to tell, when I rotated in ophthalmology, when I first saw an injection into the eye, which is routinely done for medications and stuff, I also, when I saw it first time, I also didn't think it was so funny, but it's actually very tolerable. It is not painful, and it's safe and routinely done, right? So people who hear this shouldn't think, oh my God, it is actually something that's routinely done. If you have other eye diseases, you can access the eye compared to many other organs actually quite readily, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. I assume, and we don't need to make this into an eyeball show. I assume the person is either there's numbing, there's blurry. It does something
Of
so
course.
you're calm, right? You're calm.
Well, definitely you cannot have for any manipulation. Also, people have retinal diseases and so forth, so they get injections in the eye. You have to immobilize the eye because it has muscles in the back. So you cannot just move the eye, have the eye moving around. But that makes common sense. You also don't twitch your arm if you have blood drawn from your arm. But the actual injection with the numbing on the outside is very, very painless, and the eye needs to be temporarily immobilized so it doesn't move around. It's just really the mental thought of it that would scare people off. But the reality is that there's millions and millions injections for various reasons done into eyes every single day in this world.
Yeah.
That's just how
yeah, and I've actually done a couple of episodes with folks with type 1 who have talked about getting over the fear. So I shouldn't be perpetuating it because it's much better to get the treatment. And there are a lot, like you said, there's lots of treatments that go that way. So I shouldn't be contributing to the fear.
Yeah, sometimes it's actually really good to volunteer. I haven't volunteered for these eye injections, but I have volunteered for a trial for the Shingrix vaccine where they took cells out of lymph nodes, axillary lymph nodes. And the thought to have like a 6 centimeter long needle under ultrasound going in the axillary lymph node is a really unpleasant thought, right? But then when it happens, it's actually essentially pain-free, right? So for some of these things, you just have to see how it comes down and what it means in reality. You can cut that out.
No, that's all right. We'll just keep talking about eyeballs and all that stuff. But I think it really is fascinating. Michael, let me ask you, and maybe this is something more towards the end, but I've been in the diabetes world for more than 18 years. My son was diagnosed in 2006, and I know of the Diabetes Research Institute and DRIF because of a personal connection or two that I have there and people that I've met along the way, going to conferences and doing the podcast. But I got to be honest with you, I don't think enough people know about you and know what you're doing. And I know you're pushing ahead and you've been there for just a little bit more than a year. But, is it because you're so focused on research? Is it because you're based in Florida? What do you want people to know about you and how can we help you get the word out?
I'm glad you asked that. I agree. I think for an organization that has contributed in important ways to, again, our understanding of this disease and how to treat it better, for an organization that's really moved the needle, we're not as known as we should be. And, I think that maybe has something to do with maybe a kind of cultural, what's the word I'm looking for here? Humility. I think that we have been sticking to our knitting, right? We've been focused on the work and less focused on telling the world about who we are and what we do. And that has to change. That is changing. I think that part of our obligation to the public as we carry out this work is to make sure that they understand who we are and what we do and the impact that we're having on this disease. And just as important, to give them the opportunity to invest philanthropically in our work. And it is a sight to behold when we have a conversation with a potential donor about an important project that we're doing. And we have a number of those projects. We call them quantum leap projects that we can talk about in more detail. But these are projects that, if successfully executed, we think that they will contribute significantly to prevention and cure of this disease. And it's a sight to behold when you talk to a potential donor about one of those projects and you draw a straight line between what their philanthropic investment is and what it would do in advancing the work. Then we have a very happy donor. We provide opportunities for people who are philanthropically inclined and who have been touched by this disease. We provide them an opportunity to do something about it, to make a difference. And we take a lot of pride in how we demonstrate to that donor the impact of that support. I think if we're being honest, most of our philanthropic transactions, right? Whether it's a $50 transaction or a $5 million transaction, sometimes we don't always know the outcome of that transaction, right? We give the money to the organization, the money kind of goes into a kind of black box, and we're told that they're doing important things with it, but it's not always clear and a clear line of sight on the impact of their investment. And we're very proud of that.
So let me ask you about those Quantum Leap projects. Can you share a little bit more about those?
Absolutely. I think Matthias actually is in a better position to do that. Matthias, not to call on you, but do you want to talk a little bit about that?
They are one of my favorite topics. I think, and just to dovetail into what Michael just said, I think we should beat our drums more. As I told you in the beginning when I came to the DRI, it's really the best academic translational place for diabetes because of this interdisciplinarity and the culture of cooperation. And speaking about the bigger fruits that could come out of it, these quantum leaps, one favorite one is, I think we could play an instrumental role at the DRI to conduct a small proof of concept clinical study to amplify beta cells and islets in patients with type 1 diabetes, maybe recently diagnosed, to make them grow. This has become a recent major one of these victories one can celebrate in the field. It became clear, also through research at the DRI, that you can amplify already adult human beta cells. This was thought to not be possible for literally decades. And so if you could do this, in the best case, you could envision that through augmenting islets, you could almost in a way outgrow or outrun the immune attacks on these islets. So this is a very strong wish of mine that we could realize such a small proof of concept trial that would then make the area palatable, openable, developable for pharma companies to make a drug treatment out of it that could have substantial impact for patients' lives. Another favorite quantum leap, that's the only other one I give you. We have about 10 or 11, but we're going to have a long podcast, is relating to the prevention of diabetes. And that's something also close to our hearts because you can now screen patients out. And that means you should be able to do something early in the disease. And there's various drug candidates. One approach that particularly intrigues me for the quantum leap is that for some of what we call organ-specific autoimmune diseases, so like diabetes, where the immune system selectively attacks a cell or organ in a locality, meaning not the whole system, but just this organ. You can ask how this has happened locally. It's not an error of the whole immune system because it only happens locally. There are many other examples, arthritis, multiple sclerosis, alopecia where you lose hair, and so forth. And we think that this could occur by the nervous system in error, setting the wrong tone in a local area and telling the immune cells there to maybe look for trouble and inflammation rather than keep the peace. And what you can sort of refer to as nervous tension and innervation in an organ is a very, very interesting and new area of research that you could argue, if we resolve this and understand it mechanistically in research, it could be useful to prevent many different autoimmune diseases. Yeah. So that's just two examples, one in the research side and one more on the clinical side of these quantum leaps that go out of, let's say, out of our normal doing, but we really aspire to realize these at the DRI.
That's great.
Scientifically, we hope for many more victories. There are three areas: augmentation of beta cells, maybe new devices with local immune suppression on board, so you don't have to systemically immune suppress patients after islet transplant, and better tolerable immune therapies that you would also call induction maintenance, to induce, but then the patient doesn't have to stay on it, or the patient receives a very light therapy. These light therapies that have no systemic burden would actually also be very good to prevent diabetes altogether in patients at risk. So that's our key aspirations scientifically, and we hope that we're going to make good strides on this path in the time to come.
Michael, I'll give you the last word here. Before I let you go, what do you want listeners to take away?
I would like listeners to know that the Institute is really making a difference in the lives of people who are navigating this disease, that our history has been extraordinary, but our future is going to be even brighter. And I would just encourage anybody who wants to learn more about our work, whether it's work that we've talked about on this call or other quantum leap projects that we are moving forward, that of course I would be happy to speak with them and put them in touch with others at the Institute who can tell them in more detail some of the exciting work that we're doing. And then I would just say too that if any of your listeners had any interest in joining us in the fight against diabetes to defeat this disease once and for all, we would welcome that. And I think it's fair to say that we would provide a donor experience that is unparalleled in the diabetes research space. We would ensure that that donor knew exactly what we're doing with that support and the impact of that investment in our mission. This is an extraordinary time for progress and promise in this field. The Institute is a very big part of that, and we would welcome the support and the partnership of others.
Thank you both so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. We will, of course, link up all the information about DRI and the foundation, but I really appreciate it. Come back anytime and check in with us.
Stacey, thank you. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Enjoyed our conversation.
More information about DRI, of course, I will link it up in the show notes, both about the Institute and about the foundation and other ways that you can get involved. Just go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the show notes. Quick programming note, please watch social media and the Diabetes Connections, the group, because I'm not quite sure about the In the News episodes coming up. We have the Passover holiday coming up this weekend, and I am traveling for that. And then Easter weekend is the following week. So I will keep you posted online about what we decide to do in terms of releasing In the News. That should be for the 11th, but I may push it to the 18th, or it may go to a different day just because of the holidays and the way they fall. If you are celebrating Passover, I hope you have a meaningful holiday and a wonderful Seder with family or friends or, whoever you celebrate the holiday with. Thank you to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.